Jnanakosha, Puranas, Introduction.
सर्गच्च प्रतिसर्गच्च वंशो मन्वन्तराणि च वंशानुचरितं चैव पुराणं पञ्चलक्षणम्.
Vishnu Purana, Part 5. Release of Shiva from crisis. Maitreya asked Gurudev, those among the gods, human beings and the demons who worship Lord Shiva get wealth very soon, but those who worship Lord Narayana remain afflicted with scarcity. What is the reason for that? In reply, Lord Krishna had said, O Yudhishthira, I take away all the wealth from those whom I bestow my grace. When they are poor, their relatives desert them. I even render their efforts useless when they try to earn money. Thus, being unsuccessful repeatedly, the people develop an attitude of indifference for wealth. Then they begin to take shelter as my devotee and mingle with me. Only then I bestow my full grace on them and they receive me as Sajidananda Parabrahma. Thus pleasing me through my worship is extremely difficult. Hence, ordinary people give me up and worship other deities, which are in fact different forms of me. Lord Shiva is Ashutosh and bestows his devotees quickly with grace. He gives wealth and other riches to his devotees. But once they get wealth, the devotees become despotic and even forget the God who had blessed them. Once upon a time there was a demon, Vrikasur. He had pleased Lord Shiva and sought a boon that the person upon whose head the demon put his hand should be incinerated at once. Lord Shiva granted the boon without considering the consequences. But as soon as the demon got this supernatural power, he ran to incinerate Lord Shiva first. The demon was eyeing Gauri Parvati, so he was determined to eliminate Lord Shiva. Now afraid of his own boon, Lord Shiva ran for his life, with the demon following him in hot pursuit. At last Shiva reached in Vaikuntha and told Lord Vishnu about his crisis. Lord at once illuminated the demon and made him put his hand on his own head. By the virtue of the boon, the demon was incinerated into no time, and thus Lord Shiva could be saved. Testing of Trinity. Once upon a time, all the sages assembled on the bank of Saraswati river. A dispute erupted among them as to who among the Trinity was the greatest. By consensus, they appointed sage Bhrigu to test the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Bhrigu reached to Brahma but did not greet him. Brahma got infuriated, but since the sage Bhrigu was his son, he did not curse him. Then Bhrigu visited Shiva. Lord Shiva proceeded to embrace the sage, but instead of accepting Shiva's welcome, the sage began to abuse him, saying, "You violate the dignity of Veda, so I will not meet with you." Angry Shiva raised his trident to kill him, but Bhagavati stopped him. At last Bhrigu reached Vaikuntha to see Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu was lying with head in the lap of Lakshmi. Bhrigu kicked hard at his chest, but instead of getting angry, Lord Vishnu got up, bowed his head before the sage and begged pardon. "O sage, pardon me. I could not welcome you at once. At your arrival, your feet are soft. I hope they are not hurt. All my sins have been washed by the touch of your feet." Bhrigu felt very pleased by the serious talks of Lord Vishnu. His heart felt overwhelmed with excess of devotion. He returned to the assembly of the sages and narrated his experience. Since then, Lord Vishnu is regarded as the supreme and giver of peace and fearlessness. Revival of Brahma's dead children. There in Dwarka lived a Brahmin. When the first son was born to his wife, it died immediately after birth. The Brahman took his dead son to the royal court and complained, "My son has died because of anti-Brahman and licentious actions of the king." One by one, thus 8 sons were born to the Brahman couple, but they all died immediately after birth. And the Brahman kept on dumping his dead sons at the gate of the royal palace. When his 9th son was born and died, Arjuna was also there in Dwarka. He made a promise to the Brahmin, "I shall guard your son or commit self-immolation." At the time of next delivery, the agitated Brahmin came to Arjuna. Training his bow and arrows, Arjuna made all arrangements to protect Brahmin's 10th son. Sanctified by many mantras, Arjuna's arrows constructed a fence around the labor room. A child took birth, but it too died after some time. Brahmin then cursed Arjuna. Arjuna scouted through all the 3 worlds and even the nether worlds in search of the Brahmin's dead son, but he could not find him anywhere. Ultimately, accepting his failure and as per his promise, Arjuna proceeded to immolate himself. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna too learnt about Arjuna's woe and stopped him from self-immolation. Thereafter, riding a divine chariot, Lord Krishna set out with Arjuna towards west. Beyond the limits of cosmos, they reached the abode of Lord Vasudeva in Tripadvibhuti. There Arjuna saw that Lord was present in Purushottam's appearance. Sri Krishna and Arjuna greeted him. Lord Purushottam said in a serious voice, "O Krishna and Arjuna, only to have an incarnation on earth from my part to protect the religion. All the demons have been slain by now. Now you too return to me." Sri Krishna and Arjuna again greeted Lord Purushottam and returned on earth with all the sons of the Brahman. Arjuna was greatly surprised to see the supreme abode of Lord Purushottam. He felt that whatever strength a living being had, it been all by Sri Krishna's grace. Like common ordinary people, the Lord Krishna stayed on earth enjoying mundane comforts, performed yagas like kings, behaved like idealistic people, deterred his subjects, and slayed evil kings to re-establish religion on earth. Chapter 6. The sages curse Yaduvanshis. Parashar said, as the time passed, Yaduvanshis grew stronger and more influential. Now no longer did they like to welcoming and treating of the great sages by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna knew about their disliking, but secretly he was pleased by this change in Yaduvanshi's behavior, for he knew that by disregarding the saints and the scriptures, they would meet their end sooner. Once the Yaduvanshis clothed Jambavati's son Samba in a woman's attire and showing him to the sages asked mockingly, "Maharaja, this is our sister-in-law. She is an expecting mother. She feels shy to ask, but tell us what will be born to her." Through their unfailing vision, the sages knew the reality and said, "Fools, a pestle shall be born to her, and that pestle shall exterminate the entire Yaduvanshis." Now all the Yaduvanshis were perplexed by sages' prediction and approached their king Ugrasen. But even the king was helpless now, because he could not change the words of the pious sages. In due course, a pestle was born to Samba. Frightened of an imminent fate, Yaduvanshis crushed the pestle into a fine powder and threw it into the sea. Only a nail remained. That also was thrown into the sea, where a fish swallowed it. A fisher caught the fish and cut it open and found the nail. He gave it to a hunter. The hunter fixed the nail in the head of his arrow. On the other hand, the sea waves washed the powder of the pestle ashore, where it germinated and grew as luxuriant grasses. Later on, once all the Yaduvanshis assembled at the seashore for a picnic, where they drank wine and began to fight with one another under intoxication. Soon their quarrel grew so high that they pulled out the grasses which were growing there to use as the arms. With the grasses their devanshis beat one another to death. Narada preaches Vasudeva about Bhagavat. Once Narada arrived in Dwaraka, Vasudeva prayed him and requested him to provide him with pious company of Bhagavad Dharma. Narada said, O king, once upon a time 9 great sages arrived in the court of the king Janaka. King Janaka had put the same curiosity before them also. I will narrate the conversation that followed there between the sages and the king. First of all, the first Yogeshwar Kavi said, O King Janaka, dedication is the first duty of a Vaishnava. He should devote everything, his actions, fruits of actions, and even himself, at the feet of Lord. He ought to hear about Lord's virtues. Such a devotee shall be indifferent to the worldly affairs and shall laugh, dance, or sing occasionally and sanctified all the 3 worlds. The king then asked about the characteristics of the Lord's devotees. Another Yogeshwar Hari said, a true devotee of the Lord remains unaffected by feelings like hunger, thirst, life, death, labor, pain, fear, and desire. Such a devotee is the excellent kind of Bhagavat. Even the wealth of all the 3 worlds cannot shake the faith of such a devotee, because Lord Sri Hari himself stays in his heart. What is illusion? A Yogeshwara Antariksh replied, King, an illusion is also God's play. Having a possessive feeling about mundane is illusion. Thinking in terms of the, me, mine, my, I, you, yours is also illusion. If one can have such an affection for God as he has for worldly things, one can easily surmount the illusion. King Janaka then asked about the method of worshipping Lord. A Yogeshwara Karbhajan said, O kings, the Lord had a fair complexion in Satya Yuga. People used to receive him through methods like meditation, reconciliation. In Treta Yuga, the Lord had reddish complexion and yagas were the main means of achieve it. In Dwapar Yuga, the Lord had yellowish complexion and he could be pleased through worship. In the present Kali Yuga, Lord had dark complexion and one can receive him through means like recitation, narration, and hearing of his name and place. Thus Narada preached Vasudeva about Bhagavad Dharma. Now the heart and mind of Vasudeva were thoroughly clean and pure. Krishna departs to his abode and description and destruction of Yadus. To remind Lord Krishna about the moment for his departure, Brahma arrived in Dwarka accompanied by all the gods. He prayed to him, O Lord, you have completed your duty of what we had once requested you. Now you please return to your abode. Lord said, on the 7th day from now, Dwarka shall submerge in the sea and Yadava shall fight among themselves to death. I too shall depart then. The arrow of the hunter shall be the cause of my departure. When Uddhava learnt that Lord Krishna was about to wind up his plays, he approached him and said, I understand, O Lord, that this all is happening by your wish, but I cannot part for a moment from your feet. Hence take me also with you to your abode. Lord Krishna said, Uddhava, I will not go anywhere. My entire brilliance will be present in Srimad Bhagavat. You stayed here preaching Bhagavad Dharma. Saying this, Lord preached to Uddhava about the Gita Jnana through the tale of Avadhuta. Lord Krishna narrated thus, Uddhava, once our ancestor Yadu happened to see Lord Dattatreya in a forest. Lord was indulged in the supreme joy in the guise of Avadhut. Yadu asked him about the reasons for his whimsical state. Avadhut had said, O king, making the various animals, birds, insects, etc., as my teacher. I have learned about spirituality from them. That is why I am free from mourning and attachment. Earth, air, sky, water, fire, the moon, the sun, pigeon, python, sea, grasshopper, bumblebee, honey bee, elephant, extractor of honey, deer, fish, prostitute, osprey, boy, girls, arrow maker, snake, spider, and wasp are all my teachers. I took refuge at these 24 teachers and learned from their behavior. I learned forgiveness from earth, purity from the sky, holiness and cleanliness from the water, innocence and renunciation from the fire, indifference from the air, to remain unaffected by circumstances from moon, abdiction from the sun, incoherence from the pigeon, dependence upon fate and remain effortless from the python, to remain always happy and serious from the sea, to be under the control of sense organs and hence meet total destruction from the grasshopper, acquiring of the virtues from bumblebee, fault in culminating from honeybee, to abstain sensuous talks from the deer, to eliminate greed from the fish, sorrow in hope and happiness in desperation from the prostitute, to feel happy in uncertainty from osprey, dispute among many from the girls, concentration from the arrow maker, to roam alone and detachment from a particular place from the snake, virtues of the Creator Lord from the spider, and I learned similarity from the wasp. In the guise of Avadhut, Lord Dattatreya says, O king, I learned wisdom and apathy from my body also, because life, and death again are inseparably intervened with it. Hence, the net result of loving this body is nothing but sorrow. Thus, our own body also helps us to learn about metaphysical knowledge. Lord Krishna also explained to Uddhava regarding futility of physical and heavenly luxuries. This human body is like a tree on which two birds, Jivatma and Paramatma, have taken shelter. Two fruits, happiness and sorrow, appear on it. Jivatma eats these fruits while Paramatma stays as an indifferent onlooker. There are three kinds of jiva: Baddha, bound; Bhakta, devotee; and Mukta, liberated. Baddha jivas, bound souls, are those who indulge in sensual pleasures and those who dislike pious company. Mukta jiva, liberated souls, are those who are free from attachment and bindings. Bhaktas are those who meditate on me and dedicate their everything in my feet and have love for my virtues. My devotee is kind, free from flaws, tolerant, has feeling of fraternity for all and controls his desires. Bhikshu Geet. Lord Krishna said, Uddhava, in the world there is indeed a dearth of such tolerant people who can tolerate bitter remarks of evil ones. In this context, there is a tale of a greedy Brahmin who lived in Ujjain. That Brahmin had been badly tormented by the evil people after he had lost his wealth. But still the Brahmin did not lose his patience, and regarding his present state as a result of his previous birth deeds, he expressed his feelings thus: These people are not the cause of my miseries. Neither the gods nor body, even planets and time, can be blamed for my miseries. Scriptures and learned ones held the mind itself guilty of one's miseries. It is the mind that runs the cycle of the world and makes every kind of efforts. In the absence of mind, even the soul is rendered motionless. When one accepts the dictates of the mind and indulges in sensual pleasures, soul too comes to be bound with it. The ultimate outcome of all the spiritual efforts, like celibacy, study of Vedas, and evidence to pious actions, is the concentration of mind. Concentration of mind and his abstention from sensual pleasures are the primary conditions for attainment of Parama Yoga. Thus Lord Krishna preached Uddhava about Jnana Gita. Uddhava too took Bhagavat in the form of the Lord with honor and departed for Bhadrik Ashram. Part 6. Description of dynasties in Kali Yuga. Parashar describes about the dynasties that would occur in Kali Yuga. Ripunjaya or Puranjaya would be the last king of Brihat dynasty. The kings of Nanda dynasty would succeed this dynasty. Then a diplomat Brahmin named Chanakya would exterminate this dynasty and enthrone Chandragupta Maurya. In Maurya dynasty, a great king would occur by the name of Ashokvardhana. After him, Yavans would rule then for 640 years. Their rule would be succeeded by the governors of fair complexioned foreigners who would rule for 160 years. Thereafter, there would be no king and no subjects because people from all the classes would come forward to rule. The ruler would be selected from the majority votes. There would be no anything like holiness. Cows would grow thin like nannies. People would not marry as per their caste. Greed, selfishness, and sex would be the base of marriage life. In adverse conditions, spouses would desert each other. There would be nothing like duty, responsibility, and conduct. Hair would be the main item of adornment for the woman. People would not have the knowledge of religious scriptures in Kali Yuga. Talkativeness would be identified with knowledge. Only those would be regarded as clever who could pick others' pockets. Children would not regard or pay due respect to their parents. Children would maintain relations with parents till their marriage only, not after that. Boys would not touch the feet of their own parents, but would pay full respect to their father and mother-in-law. Brother-in-law would be dearer to them than their own brother. Parashar says Kali Yuga is the main of faults, but it has only one great virtue, that the people will acquire divine position only by reciting Lord's name. Recitation of Lord's name, regardless of intention and motivation, whether it is love, desertion, laziness, or maliciousness, would destroy one's sins. But the sinister people would do even the most difficult task in Kali Yuga, but they would not recite Lord's name. They would not have an interest in the Lord. Their interest would be more in sensuous things like sound, touch, beauty, scent. The Paramagati, salvation that people could receive by 10,000 years of meditation in Satyuga, by performing yajna for 100 years in Treta Yuga, and by worshipping Lord's idol for 10 years in Dwapar, that surprise salvation is easily available for people in Kali Yuga simply by reciting Lord's name for 1 day and 1 night continuously. But still, in Kali Yuga, people would not have faith in Lord's name. It is their misfortune.